We weren't going on a holiday, no. We were leaving Nigeria and moving to Australia with our 3 months old baby. Just 3 months old. And looking back now, that flight represented one of the biggest decisions of our lives. Let me take you back to 2022. I had become a mother only 3 months earlier, and I was still trying to understand this new version of myself, being a first time mom. I was still adjusting to sleepless nights. I was still figuring out how to care for this tiny human who depended on me for absolutely everything. Then an opportunity came for our family to move to Australia. My husband, he actually secured a physiotherapy job and a sponsored visa. On paper, yes, it sounded incredible. A new country, a career opportunity, a chance to build something different for our family. But opportunities can look exciting from the outside while feeling terrifying to the person actually living through them. Because saying yes meant leaving home, it meant leaving family, leaving everything familiar, and doing it while I was still learning how to be someone's mother. That was the part nobody could really prepare me for. So we packed our lives into suitcases. We said goodbye to people we loved, and eventually we arrived at Abuja, Nigeria airport, ready to leave the country. Emotionally, I had already done the hard part. I had accepted that, okay, this is happening. But then came the announcement that our flight had been delayed due to some technical issues with the flight. Oh my God. It wasn't delayed for only 2 hours, not for 6 hours, but a full day. And strangely, that delay hit me harder than I expected because I had spent the entire day preparing myself to say goodbye once. Now I had to go home, wake up, and say goodbye all over again. That night I cried. Not because the airline delayed a plane. I cried because sometimes living isn't difficult because you don't want what's ahead. It's difficult because you also love what you're leaving behind. So the airline arranged accommodation for the passengers, and we ended up spending the night at a five-star hotel still in Abuja, Nigeria. At the time, it just felt like an inconvenience. Today, I remember it differently. It was one final pause, one more night on that side of our lives before everything became new. Before new streets, new systems, new people, new jobs, new routines, a completely different version of adulthood. So the following day, we finally left Abuja, Nigeria. It was 7 hours to Doha. When we landed Doha, I remember feeling relieved. First flight done. And I thought surely we had survived the difficult part. Then we realized we had about an 18-hour wait before the Sydney flight. So we had an 18-hour layover in Doha. 18 hours with a 3-month-old. Wow. We thought accommodation might be provided because of the length of the connection, but we found out that we would have to pay ourselves. And when you're relocating internationally, every expense suddenly feels enormous. You have paid for visas, you paid for flights, you paid for luggage, you paid for relocation, and you're thinking about the unknown costs waiting for you when you arrive. But we looked at our baby and realized 18 hours in an airport was simply not worth it at all. So we paid for somewhere to rest. At the time, spending that money hurt. But looking back, I would make the same decision immediately. That's one thing motherhood started teaching me quickly. It taught me that sometimes saving money isn't always truly saving if it costs you your rest, if it costs you your health, time, or peace. Then came the flight from Doha to Sydney. 15 hours non-stop. Now you need to understand something about me. I don't simply dislike flying. I am terrified of flying. I know people will tell you, oh, flying is statistically very safe. Thank you. but my nervous system has rejected that information. Every unfamiliar sound makes me suspicious. Every shake, every little drop, every time the hinges suddenly sound different, I start looking around, wondering why nobody else seems to be concerned. For the first few hours, I developed a routine, watch something, eat, check the flight map, check the baby sleeping comfortably in the bassinet the airline provided for him, then check the flight map again. Then pretend I hadn't just checked it 3 minutes earlier. Then turbulence started, the serious kind. Seatbelt sign on, flight attendants quickly sitting down and putting their seatbelts according to the pilot's instructions. The plane was moving enough for me to begin reconsidering every decision that had brought me onto that aircraft. In that chaotic moment, I turned towards my husband, looking for reassurance. No, he was asleep, peacefully. Honestly, I was offended. I mean, how could one person have that much peace while his wife was beside him conducting an emergency meeting with God and the pilots? How can? So I became the co-pilot again, but a completely silent co-pilot, completely useless co-pilot. But somehow it was comforting. And yes, eventually we landed. I still maintain that my contribution was important, whether you like it or not. The strangest thing about a non-stop 15-hour flight is that time stops behaving normally. I mean, I will sleep, wake up, look at the map, only just 1 hour gone. I will watch an entire movie. I will look again. Somehow, just another hour. At one point, I genuinely wondered whether Australia was moving away from us as we were coming towards it. But underneath all the jokes, something bigger was happening. Every hour took us further from the life we knew and closer to a life we had never seen. That was exciting, but frightening at the same time. And somehow, the calmest person in this entire story was our 3-month-old baby. He slept, he fed, he looked around, he needed us, he slept again. Meanwhile, his mother was monitoring aircraft altitude like she had recently graduated from aviation school. There was something almost beautiful about watching him. He didn't understand that we were crossing continents. He did not understand visas or careers or migration. No, he only knew that mom and dad were there. And there was something about that which stayed with me. It was that children can make huge life decisions feel very, very simple. Yes, they don't need you to have everything figured out. They just need you to keep going. And eventually, Sydney, yay! I remember seeing those letters, SYD. And suddenly, this thing we had talked about, planned for, and worried about was real. We were in Australia. No familiar family gathering around us. No normal routine waiting outside. Just the three of us. A newborn, suitcases, and a country we now had to learn how to call home. That photograph still means a lot to me because I know what happened after it. And that was learning how everything worked. Building a new routine, a whole new routine. Starting again professionally. Learning roads, building community, motherhood, marriage, life. None of that was visible in that airport picture. We were all smiling, but we had absolutely no idea what was ahead of us. When I look at those pictures now, I don't really think about the turbulence anymore. I think about how strange major life decisions are. Sometimes you make one decision and don't fully understand until years later you now understand how much it changed you. For us, it was getting onto that plane. Leaving Nigeria wasn't because we hated the life behind us. We had memories there. It was home. But sometimes loving where you've been doesn't mean you're supposed to stay there forever. And being afraid of the next chapter doesn't automatically mean it's the wrong chapter. I think that's something I've learned repeatedly as I've gotten older. Courage isn't always about feeling confident. Sometimes courage looks like carrying your baby through an airport while privately wondering whether you've made the right decision. Sometimes it's saying goodbye while crying. Sometimes courage is boarding that flight anyways. So, if you're currently standing between a familiar life and an uncertain new chapter, I don't think anyone can promise you that everything on the other side will be easy. Ours certainly wasn't easy, but I'm grateful fear didn't get to make that decision for us. So, I'm Nelo, and on this channel, we talk honestly about motherhood, marriage, career, identity, and the life changes that shape who we become. If those are conversations you're navigating to, please subscribe and tell me in the comments what's one decision that completely changed the direction of your life. I'll see you in my next video.